Aces in Pokemon. Truly an ordeal. Some Pokemon feel like aces because they only come out when the trainer is pushed into a corner, and this is their way of making a comeback through sheer might. Some Pokemon also feel like aces because no matter the game state, the moment this Pokemon hits the field, things become dire. And some Pokemon feel like aces because then you put 6 Pokemon together on a team, one of them will typically just stand out, whether it be a starter or access to a unique battle gimmick that none of the other Pokemon on the team get. Today, we're going to be talking about not just any aces in Pokemon, but the strongest ones. Whether it be from champions, Elite Four members, gym leaders, etc. So with that, before we get into the list, I just want to give a couple minor rules. I'll be covering what you encounter in the main and post-game specifically. I will not be using the Pokemon World Tournament, Battle Tree, or anything like that, because everything is mostly optimized there and it becomes too easy to pick. I'm excluding legendaries from this list. Otherwise, Team Rainbow Rocket would take up a decent number of slots, with N and Hop taking up the others. And I'm not going to take levels into account, because if I did, Red's Pikachu would be abnormally high. I also have never played Battle Revolution, so I won't be mentioning anything from there. Otherwise, it just wouldn't feel genuine. What we will be covering is stats, canon move pools, and the likes. So with that, let's get started. You've done it. You made it all the way through Hoenn. Gym 8 is all that's standing in the way of your league. You're fighting off those water types, and the final one standing before you is Spam's Double Team and Water Pulse. An infuriating slot machine that basically challenges your luck by dodging all your attacks and threatening confusion. Oh, and if you did manage to get it to low HP, if you didn't outright KO it, you gotta repeat the process, because it has access to Rest and Chesto Berry for good measure. And then Ice Beam too, as a means of letting you know that the Flygon that you probably caught isn't gonna be able to carry you. It's a menace that knows for a fact that unless you have the luck stat of some red-coated guy who really likes heroes, or the ability to will good luck into existence, like every Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist that isn't Jaden, you're gonna have a rough time. On the other side of the Kingdra coin is the Pokemon sharing this slot, who is a problem to deal with for a whole different reason. Rather than testing your luck with Double Team and Water Pulse, Claire's Kingdra makes it a goal to test your durability instead, firing off Dragon Pulse, Hydro Pump, Hyper Beam, and Smokescreen. Smokescreen, I guess she tests your luck a little bit if that's in her kit. Regardless, her Vicious Onslaught can send your team packing if you aren't prepared for it. These two are the gatekeepers of the list, the same way they gatekeep a Pokemon League from a trainer that just doesn't have the right stuff to progress forward. These two are definitely worthy ace Pokemon. You know what's one of the most efficient ways to win a battle? Having no weaknesses. And of all people I'd expect to hit me with that kind of gimmick, I would have not expected it from someone who logs on the Twitch and streams. I actually have no idea what Iono does stream, but she is still my favorite gym leader. I know we were on her stream when we fought her, but all we did was battle while she talked to her audience. Does she only do chill streams, or does she play games and we just never see which ones? You know what? Off topic. Iono's Mismagius is the one we're talking about, and dealing with that makes my brain hurt just as much as the questions from earlier. Levitate mitigating Electric's only weakness and terastallizing your Ghost type into an Electric type to get Stab on your Charge Beam along with it? Hex is solid, and it becomes brutal if she managed to paralyze any of your Pokemon with her 3 Spark users. Confuse Ray is just irritating for obvious reasons. And in her rematch, they give her Shadow Ball for consistency, and then Dazzling Gleam and Mystical Fire for solid coverage options. I think that the ability to have no weaknesses and spam a move with a 70% chance to raise your special attack is pretty solid for where Iono is in the game. And her rematch Mismagius isn't a pushover either, even after you've become champion. What prevents it from being higher on this list is that while having no weaknesses and solid offensive capability is great, it doesn't hit the same way a lot of the other Pokemon on this list do. The Pokemon above this Mismagius are some of the cream of the crop strongest Pokemon to ever live. We've talked about Chandelure before on this channel, and I do not regret doing it again. Chantel Chandelure, specifically in the Black 2 challenge mode, is a massive threat. Why specifically the challenge mode, you may ask? Because they gave her access to a choice scarf, which can absolutely catch someone unexpecting it off guard. Sure, it's prediction reliant, but an unprepared player can find their water type put in rather quick danger when an unexpected energy ball heads their way. Speaking of energy ball, Chantel Chandelure has an excellent move pool, consisting of Fire Blast, Shadow Ball, and also Psychic too. This choice scarf, alongside her Chandelure's devastating power, makes her a menace to someone unprepared. She has absolutely earned her title of being an Elite Four member. Man, Johto has been tough so far. A Pidgeotto that evolved suspiciously early, a Scyther that has Stab U-turn, and then luckily I happened to get my hands on Heracross after headbutting some trees, so the Demon Cow I heard so much about fell to the power of Brick Break. Well, we're entering the mid-game now, so I have more options available to me. Yet, almost none of them are gonna help me to deal with the base 110 speed Gengar putting my team to sleep with Hypnosis and using Shadow Ball and Dream Eater to bully my Pokemon. Morty's Gengar is one of those Pokemon where no matter what team you build for your playthrough, you're either gonna have the answer or you won't. The answers are Alakazam, which can be hard to trade for, Raticate with Crunch, or Croconaw with Bite. I would say, even with those, dealing with Morty's Gengar is still a hassle. And to make matters even worse, it can pick off weakened opponents of Sucker Punch too, just in case he didn't want to bother wasting his Shadow Ball or Dream Eater on a weakened opponent. Morty's battle is the gatekeeper to the rest of the game, because you can't progress the story without Surf, and Morty is here to make sure you never touch the ocean. No red Gyarados, no trip to Cianwood for that secret potion, no challenging Chuck, Jasmine, or Price first. You're staying right here in Ecruteak City until you're skilled enough to dodge Hypnosis, or tough enough not to be promptly 2-hit KO'd by Shadow Ball. Just ignore the easily obtainable Girafarig encounter by going through Mount Mortar to Mahogany Town and heading up to Route 33. It totally wouldn't absolutely throttle this gym. Leon's Charizard truly is unbeatable. He's able to Gigantamax for 3 turns, and in those 3 turns, unless you're prepared for it, it's KOing 3 of your Pokemon. It's got G-Max Wildfire off its fire attacks since it's a unique form with a signature move, and then the Max Grass, Flying, and Rock coverage to be able to handle potentially threatening answers to it. It's got solid speed, it's got an okay special attack stat, and if it's at low HP, which is potentially likely that it can get there instead of outright fainting, thanks to the doubling of health giving it extra bulk, Blaze can activate to increase its firepower. Got banned for various reasons in competitive. And Leon's Charizard, having access to such powerful moves thanks to it, gives it the edge over a lot of competition on this list. It's no wonder Leon's the unbeatable champion with a Pokemon like that. It would be much higher if it didn't last only 3 turns. Whew, goodness gracious, this fight. Sure, sadly a fairy type feels like all you really need to stand in its way, but I still like to believe that Ghetsis' Hydreigon is on the higher half of this list. Plus, fairy doesn't exist yet. It's got that raw power of a pseudo going for it, it's decently bulky, fast enough to threaten slower Pokemon, and in the challenge mode of Black 2, he gives it a Life Orb. Sadly, he also gives it a physical set, for what feels like no reason. But then again, imagine if he gave a special attacking monster like Hydreigon a Life Orb. Now imagine if that boosted its Dragon Pulses, Focus Blasts, Surfs, and Fire Blasts. Admittedly, I wish that he had Dark Stab, but he doesn't really need it. The coverage options along with the powerful Dragon Pulse should be plenty. And it happens that this is one of the Pokemon in the entirety of your playthrough of Black and White 1 that's actually a challenge to deal with. He's not just an ace monster, he's something much more terrifying. I wouldn't want to get on Hydreigon's bad side. This is going to be the only time I mention a non-mainline game, especially since every battle is a double battle. And I'm talking about this Pokemon specifically in the context of doubles. I know it's not the highest leveled Pokemon on his team, but Yves' Slaking is a menace to society. He leads this monster with Slowking, uses the base 100 speed and base 160 attack stat to Crush Claw and probably KO a Pokemon, which means only one can attack the Slowking next to it. Odds are, said Slowking can tank the hit and then use Skill Swap to remove Truant. That, by itself, in my opinion, is just as threatening as the Shadow Tyranitar that he keeps in the back. Because suddenly, Slaking goes from a car that can't start to a fully loaded semi-truck that runs over all your Pokemon if you don't have a reliable answer for it. The supposed leader of Team Cypher knew what the heck he was doing with this strategy, that's for sure. But if the highest leveled Pokemon on his team is Machamp, why isn't it the Ace? Because the Slaking is much more impactful to his overall game plan, and has actual moves that breaks through checks, like Earthquake to beat Rock and Steel, and Aerial Ace to beat fighting types. It even has Bulk Up to bolster it further. Yeah, he has Salamence and Scizor too, but they don't have the power a Slowking with no slow start has. Now, imagine if Yves' team was updated to have Galarian Weezing on it, so you didn't have to waste a turn on Skill Swap. I mean, of course it's gonna be high on this list. It's Mega Metagross. Steven's Mega Metagross is a demon. Excellent bulk, 145 attack and Tough Claws, plus base 110 speed. It's a near perfect unit. So near perfect that it even got banned from competitive singles in Gen 7 for being too much of a unit. I've never seen something utterly destroy fairies the same way that Steven's Mega Metagross has. Meteor Mash and Zen Headbutt for stab, Bullet Punch to outgun the things that outspeed it, and Giga Impact? Okay, so admittedly, this fourth move is the entire reason why Steven isn't number 1 on this list. For some reason, he decided he didn't want to use Ice Punch to destroy the irritating Ground-type Pokemon that threatened his team. And instead, he decided that Giga Impact was the overall better choice. Personally, I'm more for Earthquake myself, if not Ice Punch. But there's a reason he's a Pokemon champion and I make YouTube videos. It just doesn't make sense to me as all. And if he had Ice Punch, he'd definitely shoot up to the top spot. So, I bet you expected Cynthia's Garchomp to be number 1 when clicking on this video, huh? If you had a bet with your friend and you lost it, well, you better pay up. Because there's one Pokemon I consider to be more of a problem than this behemoth. 130 attack, 102 speed, and Cynthia's put an ungodly amount of moves on it over the years and has also given it a fair bit of items too. The Citrus Berry and the Yache Berry are the ones she uses in her main battles in the Sinnoh games though, and she's given this Garchomp Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Brick Break, Flamethrower, Giga Impact, and even Poison Jab for fairies. But what really puts fear into the soul? Well, the ability Rough Skin in BDSP, but even more so is Swords Dance. Seeing Garchomp use Swords Dance and then starting to beat your Pokemon senselessly has been horrifying for years. And to this day, it still kind of holds up pretty well. There will never be a generation where the emotional scars it's left won't be visible throughout the Pokemon community. But while I think Cynthia is probably the strongest trainer on this list, I think there's one ace Pokemon that threatens every other Pokemon on this list as a whole. But first, here are some honorable mentions. Bugsy Scizor has Technician, Swords Dance, and Bullet Punch. I would say honorary number 11 just for being a lad. While he does have it on his Scyther, and said Scyther is intimidating in the early game, it just isn't Scizor. Also, it just happens that Onix and Geodude are available very early in the game, and Scyther kills over to a small pebble. Flannery would absolutely be on here with her Torkoal, because White Herb and Overheat is an amazing combo. However, the lack of drought makes it not as threatening. I thought of putting Lenora's Watchog on here, but it's only scary while your Pokemon aren't strong. Also, there are fighting types available right outside of Nacrene to make the fight much easier. While Blue is a really cool trainer and he has a Mega Charizard in the Let's Go games, it not having an ability butchered it. It's worth noting that Wallace's Milotic having Toxic and Recover is very good. Simply being able to sit there, tank hits, and recover off the damage without wasting a full restore is frustrating. To make matters even worse for you, at any moment, Milotic can decide not to play passive with you and hit you with Surf and Ice Beam. It even has a Citrus Berry for good measure in case it wants to preserve one of its recovers. Charon's Lillipup will give you a hard time if you're not prepared, as I've experienced it myself. However, with Charm Azurill and Riolu being accessible at Flockacy Ranch, it becomes much easier. I have to at least bring up Whitney's Miltank in some way for this list. It's deadly, I'll give it that, especially if you're not prepared. But the Johto games bear us pretty good cow killers, being Heracross if you're playing the remix, and the originals with Machop. Just trade the NPC and the department store and you're pretty much set. With these two mons, Whitney's Miltank becomes pretty easy. Now on the number 1. The Roaring Moon Professor Sada has is incredibly deadly, and the only thing they did wrong with this boss fight was not let it go Terra Dragon to further bolster its insane offensive power. Solid Special Bulk is nice, but the selling point is the base 139 attack stat, 119 speed stat, and the booster energy that activates on entry to give it a 33% attack boost. When AI Sada said she had the data of every champion installed in her for a perfect battler, she wasn't lying. She hits most Pokemon in the game with Crunch, Dragonclaw, Earthquake, and Stone Edge. Sure, Stone Edge arguably could have been replaced with Dragon Dance, but there's nothing wrong with having 4 attacks and just hitting super effective buttons when you're this fast and powerful. Not much on this list compares. Chandelure takes the hit and uses Crunch. Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Metagross lose to Roaring Moon's stabs, and the unbeatable Charizard gets outgunned. Evice's Slaking might have solid odds against it, but the issue is that the Slowking next to it absolutely doesn't. If AI Sada happened to be able to Terrastalize it, it might have become a little too powerful. But it's in my eyes the strongest ace Pokemon at this current point in history. I wonder if they'll up the ante in the DLC and make like a Sun team with choice specs walking Wake on it. That's one of the few ways you top this behemoth. And those are my opinions on who ranks at the top and who doesn't. I would have been surprised with myself for not putting Cynthia at the top spot if Sada's Roaring Moon wasn't a complete demon to go up against. Diet Mega Salamence that makes use of its stabs and ability is really good, so I shouldn't be too shocked. I would have put Turo's Iron Valiant on here, but none of his moves have a base power of over 80. What do you guys think though? Did I miss anything? Is there an ace that should have been on here? What do you guys want me to talk about next? Let me know down in the comment section below. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching my content. With Scarlet and Violet DLC on the way, we have a lot to be excited for. Not just that though, but I've got a bunch of other cool series planned throughout the year that I'm sure you guys will love. If you want to support my other forms of content, over on Mystic Reads, I read fanfics. One of them right now is Road to be a Pokemon Master Kanto Edition, where Ash and Serena start from the very beginning and journey through Kanto together. On Mystic Umbreon Shorts, I do other exclusive Pokemon content such as Pokemon Facts, and on Saturdays, I upload my top 5 favorite Pokemon of a type. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an excellent day.